This
The month of October 2023 seemed to be a very dangerous month for pastors in South Africa. We just put out a video of the Pentecost church being robbed in South Africa during church service, and this footage in this true crime video for today also shows another pastor, unfortunately, being unalived by robbers who also entered his church to rob them. Watch the video and I'll bring you my 2 cents afterwards.
my apologies. Thank you so much, Ma, for having me here today and for allowing me to minister on your platform, on your pulpit. It is something that I do not take lightly. I normally say this.
So there you saw it. Now, the name of the pastor is Pastor Dwayne Gordon, and it is very unfortunate. It's so unfortunate the way this 22-year-old pastor met his untimely end. And this is how the events played out. This happened in Johannesburg, or as some would call it, Johannesburg in South Africa, and it's the same place that the first video of the Pentecost church also happened. So it looks like Johannesburg is having an increase in crime rates, and some of these criminals, for some twisted reason, are deciding to target churches who are almost vulnerable physically, although some may argue that they have the spiritual backing of God. But some also compete that and say that if that was the case, then the gunmen shouldn't have been successful. But I've already made my stance clear on that. But you saw the footage, and it's just very, very unfortunate. This is how the things played out. So Pastor Dwayne Gordon is not the resident pastor of this church. He was actually just visiting this church, and the name of the church is the Eagle Christian Center, and it's located in Sophia Town. So he was invited there as a special guest for a Friday night service, and he was just to be there to preach as the special guest pastor, and his job was done. He would go back to his own church and continue his work for God. But unfortunately, as he was preaching on this fateful Friday night, these gunmen came into the church and then started firing warning shots. This seemed very unusual, I can imagine, actually. And at this point, he, acting out of surprise, was just watching them. And you could see him in the footage. He was watching them. And unfortunately for him, at the time, the service was also being live streamed. So it was covering how he was going to lose his life. Now, when he was watching these guys, one of the gunmen, who was seeming to be the one directing the traffic of the robbery, asked him not to look at him. This was when the gunman had actually noticed, allegedly, that the pastor was looking at him. Now, the gunmen had entered around 8 p.m. and at this time, all the congregants had been ordered to be on the floor as they continued to rob them. Now, when Dwayne was looking at this gunman, this gunman turned, lifted his weapon, and he just fired at him. Just like that. Just like that. And when some of the other pastors tried to reach out to help Pastor Dwayne Gordon, this assailant was insisting that they refrained from doing so, even to the point that when they were trying to pray for him at wherever they were lying on the ground, this assailant was still insisting that anybody who did so is going to meet his untimely end. And I think this is just crazy. This is just crazy. The whole thing is just crazy, from how they decided to target this church for a robbery through to the point where they decide, or he decides, to unalive this man of God for looking at him, through to the point that even after he has escalated with his weapon, he didn't want to allow anybody to render any medical aid to this man of God, and even again to the point where he didn't even want anybody to pray for him. I think this guy could embody the devil himself. It's as if the devil got out of hell and walked into this church to torment this man of God, because this is a whole new level of cruelty, and I just don't understand what was driving this guy, unless of course he was on some form of drugs, because at that point his rationality definitely is gone. So this is what has happened. And as at the time of making this video, young Pastor Dwayne Gordon had been laid to rest, but unfortunately, no arrests have been made. And this is where it becomes baffling. In this case, the camera couldn't capture the faces of these criminals, unlike what happened in the Pentecost church. If you are not privy to that, just go back to my playlist. That one is also there, and that also happened in October of 2023. So it looks like for the robbers in South Africa, Johannesburg specifically, October was church season, and they didn't renege on their pursuit against the churches. And I'm hoping that the South African security forces are able to nip this practice in the bud, not just against churches, but against the citizens. Because over the period, my research has shown that gun violence in South Africa has been on the rise, and it is becoming something that I believe should probably be considered being treated as a pandemic. Because if it has gotten to this point where a young 22-year-old pastor is being unalived by a gunman simply because he looked at him, and another church is also being robbed, and a deacon at the church being kidnapped, then I think things have gotten overboard, if they were already not overboard. I'm waiting to see whether the police will be able to solve this quickly, but at this point that no arrests have been made, I don't know if this would even be solved at all. There are also no reports of any suspects in mind, but I believe the police may usually not name these suspects until they are sure of who they are going in for. So I'm sitting on the fence, but I believe that this is too much. And I don't know why criminals would also decide that of all the possible targets, they would rather target the church. And I believe that it's also about time, especially given these happenings, that some of these churches, if not all, begin to sort of scout their area, run an assessment of where they are located, and if they see there is the need, get some security officers to protect them. I believe there is no shame in that. The fact that you serve the living God and you pray does not necessarily mean that you don't need physical security. After all, when you close, you lock the church. That is a form of security. So I'm thinking that these churches should begin to get proactive. They should get security guys with licensed weapons who will protect them, because it seems they are beginning to look like easy prey for some of these criminals, because they organize fundraisers, and definitely church fundraising yields huge money. This is money these robbers, I suspect, are beginning to see that they can easily swoop in and take away without any form of resistance. So I think the church is looking like a target for money without resistance, and it will be good. that they also put in some security measures aside they praying. That is my 2 cents. I don't know what you think. You can leave your comments in the comment section. But it's unfortunate, and I wish the family of Pastor Dwayne Gordon the strength to go on in this difficult time. Pastor Dwayne Gordon himself has been buried at the tender age of 22. I wish him a peaceful rest with his maker, and I hope he gets his reward from God. He died in the line of duty, actually. And for the criminals, I hope, even if the Lord doesn't get them, the God whose servant they just assassinated deals with them. I pray that the police are able to solve this also, so Pastor Dwayne Gordon and his surviving family and loved ones will get the justice that they deserve. What do you think is accounting for all these things pertaining to robberies and targeting of church members and pastors? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Until then, just subscribe, turn on post notifications, and keep an eye out and stay safe out there. I'll catch you next time.